prevalent is depression?
Yes, I think according to the WHO, about 10% of the general population are diagnosed with depression, like are known to have depression per se. So just imagine 10%. That means for every 100 people,
Hmm.
10 people
Has it?
are likely to be depressed. That means for every 10%, one person is likely to be depressed per se.
What's up, guys? How you all doing? Trust you guys are doing well. It's your boy Michael. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time coming across this channel, please do well to subscribe to the channel. And if you're an existing subscriber, I want to say thank you for the continued support of the channel. So today I'm not talking about Jackpot in terms of education, but I'm going to be talking about depression and how to overcome it. If you're a follower of this channel, you know that I have a content that I dropped sometimes ago that I talk about my own depression story. But today I have a doctor that's going to be coming in to talk about it and, tell you how you can really deal with it or how you can overcome it if you are going through depression or you know anyone that is going through depression that you can share the video with them. So you guys should stay tuned and go nowhere. So guys, welcome back, guy. I'm going to be connecting to the doctor now. He's already online now, waiting for me to bring him in. Yeah. Hello,
Okay.
doctor.
Good evening. I don't know what your time is because
Over here
I'm already.
it's 5 p.m. here now. What time are you over there?
It's 1 o'clock, 1 minute past one exactly. So
Oh.
I am one day ahead of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. How
Anyway,
are you doing?
before we go ahead, I want to appreciate you taking your time out to really do this content with me and to create this video. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I don't hammer now. Sorry, I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to be speaking like a professional.
You are a doctor
Well,
already
part of
anyway.
the doctor
You
that
are a
went
doctor.
to.
I know the bar. The bar comes with the doctor, with the career. Unlike us that study marketing or management.
So I have to many times compose myself and speak proper English because if you leave me now, I'll just enter pidgin. I'll enter
Well,
pidgin
it's
English.
fine.
Makes me
That's
comfortable.
the beauty of being in Nigeria. You know, we can
Yes.
switch.
And another thing I noticed is that I think if I was being carried into academics, I don't think they will make English compulsory for medical doctors because proper English is something we don't really use when we're at work. You have to relate with your patients. So if you are speaking big English or just throwing jargons like that, patients cannot understand you. So you're forced to speak in their own terms. I knew when I was in Nigeria, then I speak Pidgin English. I had to learn some of their native languages. Even here in Saudi Arabia, I am learning Arabic. So I communicate most times with my patients in Arabic per se. So you see, that's why this English thing, just leave it. It's not for me.
Anyway,
Yes, sir.
thank you once again. If you don't
Thank you
mind,
for having me.
can you introduce yourself to the audience or the viewer?
Okay, good day, everybody. It depends on what time you're going to publish this. I'm Dr. Tabat Emmanuel, a medical doctor, a Nigerian medical doctor. And currently, I am not in Nigeria. I'm working at Saudi Arabia as a general practitioner. I'm also a YouTuber. I have my YouTube channel that I usually handle medical stuffs, especially the lives of doctors. So, and my friend here, Michael, decided to invite me to his channel to discuss something that I think is very important, which I count it as an honor per se. You left all the Nigerian doctors in the US, left all the Nigerian doctors in Nigeria, and jumped to the Middle East to come and catch me. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for introducing yourself. So, like
Yes,
I said earlier on, viewer, today we are going to be talking about depression and the causes of depression and how to overcome it. And as you guys heard from him, he's a medical doctor, and there's no better person to bring to this content to talk about it than someone who is in the field of medical. So first of all,
Actually, let me correct you. Let me correct you.
Okay.
There's somebody better than me. If you brought a psychiatrist, if you brought a psychiatrist, that's all. You are fitting. But there's this saying that we always obey, that you're first a doctor before you're a specialist. So anyhow, as a doctor, you should have an idea of everything that's happening around you, because most times people with different kind of illnesses come, so you're able to sort them to know which specialist you're going to refer to in terms of if the person needs to see a specialist. So yes, if you had gotten a psychiatrist, it would have been better, but no how. Anyhow. Thank you, sir.
Well, before we go ahead, I want to say creating this content is actually motivated based on the video I saw on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to show the video because I find it difficult to even watch it while I saw it on Twitter. And it's a man that committed a suicide by jumping into a lagoon. But that aside, anyway, doctor, do depression have a definition?
Yes, it does. It does. Based on the standard definition, it's a mood disorder, mood. So there are different kinds of it's a mental illness, but it's a mood disorder that is usually characterized by the feeling of sadness and also loss of interest in activities generally. So that's the blanket definition of depression. Yes. Sometimes it's also called clinical depression or unipolar depression. It depends. Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Why, before we started this content video, I did some little bit of research about how prevalent depression is.
Depression is,
and I saw that in US that most people in the third world country want to go. 5.9% of the population have depression.
Yeah.
So how prevalent is depression?
Yes, I think according to the WHO, about 10% of the general population are diagnosed with depression, are known to have depression per se. So just imagine 10%. That means for every 100 people, 10 people are likely to be depressed. That means for every 10%, one person is likely to be depressed per se. And this is even very tricky because there are many parts of the world that the ability to diagnose depression is just totally lacking. And depression is a particular disorder that is not properly characterized per se. So if there were proper or very, very good, what will I say, very good ways to diagnose depression, it will be way higher than we think it is currently. So even based on the epidemiology per se, countries that seem to have higher prevalence of depression might not necessarily even have the higher prevalence compared to other countries that might seem to have the lower number, because they use these numbers based on their ability to diagnose people with depression. So it's likely way higher than we think it is. And it's even increasing. So that's the sad thing. The prevalence is increasing, and it's really sad.
And I'll just, I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
In what you just said. You said it's even increasing. What are the things that are making this to increase, if I might ask?
Okay, we'll talk about the causes of depression. And every psychiatrist or every medical doctor, even psychologists and clinical psychologists especially, will tell you that the major cause of depression is not known. But there are factors that seem to be associated with depression per se. And the major one there, I will broadly divide them into two: the biologic and the environmental factors.
And I like that you are going to the factor, because my next question would have been, what are the risk factors of depression?
Okay. Yeah. So let me just use one stone to kill two birds then. And if we're able to identify the risk factors, then we can easily explain why it's on the rise. Again, I'll answer that later. So the risk factors, the biologic factors will be most likely things that have to do with your genetics. So we know that it's genetic too. If you come from a family that are suffering from depression, based on statistics, you are 3 times more likely to be depressed. It doesn't mean that you must be depressed, but the chances are higher compared to someone born into a family that do not have this kind of issues. Now, another thing is more common amongst females than males. I think one research showed that about 20% of females, the incidence is about 20% in females, whereas for males, it's about 12% or so. So if you look at it, the number is about twice in women than it is in males per se. So that's broadly the genetic factor or the biologic factors. For the environment, many things come into play. Understand the past events, usually events of loss, trauma, and the rest, how your environment generally is to a large extent also increases or decreases your susceptibility towards becoming depressed. So I would say that to answer why it's on the rise, I think majorly it's for the fact that there's improved method of being able to diagnose depression compared to before. A lot of people had died before and people didn't know it was depression that killed them. And part of what you're doing is to create the awareness to understand what is depression and be able to seek help as quickly as possible. But many people have been depressed and died without being diagnosed with it. So yes, the improvement in being able to diagnose this depression has made it has contributed to it looking like it's on the rise. And the second is that more and more people are getting depressed with our changing how will I say, interpersonal relationships. It's making us more and more susceptible into becoming depressed because when we subsequently reach how to prevent it, I'll be able to marry that properly for you. I hope that question is amongst the questions you have to ask me.
Of course, of course.
Okay, sir.
My next question is going to be based on what you just said about diagonizing it.
Yes.
In the developing world, like in the third world country,
Yes.
what do you think of the rates in terms of diagonizing it? Because I know in the West here, they tend
Yes.
to have more process of diagonizing. That's why we have like a figure for AIDS. But in
Yes. Yes.
Africa, for example, we don't really have that particular figure or data that really
Yes. We
explain
don't.
people that have depression.
Yes. And I think part of the challenge is not in the decreased competence of psychiatrists or medical doctors in developing countries. One of the biggest challenges developing countries face is the low number of health workers working. I think in Nigeria, the number of psychiatrists to the Nigerian populace is very, very discouraging. I can't remember. Was it 1 to 100,000 or so? It's really low per se. Psychiatrists in Nigeria are very low. So imagine how many patients we even have to reach or be able to access the psychiatrist or the psychologist. We're not even talking about psychology because many psychologists eventually when they graduate might not be able to get jobs, so they enter into other things. They might work in the bank, they might go into business and instead of doing their stuff. So a lot of people that actually need their help are not able to access them since these things are not really feasible in the country per se. So this to a certain extent affects how we're able to diagnose this disease. But I'm telling you, the numbers we have in developing countries is alarming because many of the things that happen in developing countries are things that could make one depressed, even if you were not born into a family with a history of depression.
Can you give us an example of that? I know I'm in diaspora also, but then
Yes.
can you give us example of things that people face in diaspora that that can make them depressed?
In diaspora? or in Nigeria or
In
in
Nigeria,
developing countries?
in developing country, in
Okay,
developed
developing
country,
countries.
in developed
Yes,
country, I mean.
in developed countries, one of the risk factors too is loss.
Hmm.
You understand? So look at these cases in which there are kidnappers everywhere. There are herdsmen entering into villages, entering into homes and killing people. Imagine people that had lost their relatives, lost their breadwinners. There was a story about a man that came from the US
Yeah,
to come and
yeah,
develop,
I read it.
and then he was being kidnapped and killed.
Killed.
Imagine
Yeah.
how this affects the family. There are
Hmm.
very high chances that the family members will likely be depressed. So
Hmm.
these kind of things happen. People that have lost their jobs, people that are not able to provide for their families, you understand, these kind of things happen a lot and it slides people into depression. ASU was on strike for a while, so the number of students that were expecting to graduate and move on with their lives had been unable to graduate and had to stay back. Many of them battled these things, and it's possible that a significant chunk of them will have likely experienced this or not. So these are some of the things that somewhat play a role towards people getting depressed. I can tell you for the diasporan people, one thing I've noticed from relocating, especially as a Nigerian, is that we tend to downplay the significance of community in Nigeria.
Thank
Nigeria
you.
is a
Thank
very
you.
social, Nigeria is a very social country. We are lively. Everybody knows us. We are the life of the party. So many times you can be bored and you can easily
Go to
walk
your
out,
friend's place.
go to your friend's place. In fact, you can even go to an occasion that you know nobody. You just dress well and go and sit down there and watch the bride and the groom or whatever occasion they are having. They will give you food. And some people invite you over
Sorry
to
to
have
cut you
that.
short. There's a name they call such people in Nigeria and Yoruba. They
Eh,
call them Ogbomoya. That you are not invited, but you just stop over.
yes, and that's it. So these kind of things help to a very great degree. People that watch football can go into viewing centers to go and watch. You understand? When you're in the market, you can see one ear will sit in front of our shop, gisting with another ear in front of our shop. These are things that are really lacking abroad.
Hmm.
Like you can sit down, except you have to go out to work, but you can sit down indoors for weeks without coming out. You don't know your neighbors, you don't know how they look like. So if something happens, there's really nobody you can interact with. You understand? And these things can easily slide you into depression. I know it's something that many people are struggling with, especially a lot of doctors here in Saudi Arabia, the single ones, because me, I came with my wife and my child, so somehow I have people to
That's
interact with.
good.
But the single ones really struggle, and you just be somewhere and you are on your own. It really affects people. One doctor that I know even was already thinking of going back to Nigeria because of that. So this community is not there. And if you're facing any challenge, you're facing it alone. You have no one
Hmm.
to interact with. Everybody minds himself or herself abroad, and that can predispose you towards getting depressed too.
Thank you very much for really explaining that. I hope that people who are watching it or watching now, they can really get something from what
Yeah.
you've just said, because even me that I'm here, you are lecturing me. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My next question is going to be how is the people in the medical line, like you as a
Yes,
doctor, how are
yes.
you helping people that are diagnosed with depression?
Okay, depression can be actually divided based on severity into mild, moderate, and severe. The
Hmm.
problems usually lie with the severe depression because one of the major characteristics of major depression is suicidal tendencies.
Hmm.
Suicidal tendencies, as per they they the thoughts of killing themselves
So, hmm.
with or without a plan comes in. Okay, let me say something here. You see, in terms of diagnosing depression, there are certain criteria, but one of the major criteria is that the person will exhibit at least 5 of some 8 or 9 characteristics. And when that person exhibits them almost throughout the day, for almost every day, for at least 2 weeks, the person can be said to be diagnosed with depression, because many times we can mix depression with sadness. So to even diagnose someone that is depressed like that, there's a criteria. There's something called the DSM-5 criteria. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Health Diseases. I think that the 5th edition. So there are some certain things you do as a medical doctor. If you've diagnosed someone, especially as a general practitioner or any other doctor, that you're not a psychiatrist, if you diagnose someone with depression, what you do is you just refer directly to the psychiatrist.
Wow.
Refer the person to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is in a better place to help the person. However, there can be some certain challenges in developing countries, because you could be somewhere that they cannot easily access a psychiatrist, because, as I mentioned earlier, these people are not really as much as we think they are. So if you're in rural areas or places that don't have a huge chunk of psychiatrists, you might have to do the job alone on your own. But if you could access a psychiatrist, you send the patients to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist is in a better place to be able to help the person. So the first thing is try and send to the expert to manage. So a psychiatrist and sometimes clinical psychologists could also do that too. But we ask ourselves, how many clinical psychologists in Nigeria or developing countries? It's not that easy, you understand. We don't really do, I don't think we do it in Nigeria. And if you understand the rigorous process you go through to become the clinical psychologist, you just prefer to stay abroad than to come down to Nigeria, where you are almost useless. So that's what we usually would do, refer, and in cases where there are no psychiatrists, we'll have to manage ourselves. So when it comes to management, there are broadly 2 forms of management. We could use the non-pharmacological or the pharmacological. Don't mind my English. Pharmacological means drugs. So when we say non-pharmacological, the first, especially for patients that are not severely depressed per se, you would want to use non-pharmacological. That means you treat them without drugs, and some activities, you encourage them to start engaging in some activities like exercising, hanging out. This could help to a certain extent. And some particular dieting too, healthy eating, also help them. But the pharmacological treatment, there are some classes of drugs that can be used to be able to help and help them come out of the depression per se. But there's usually a last resort, which somewhat controversial, especially in our modern world, but it's still being employed for people that these drugs don't help, or they tend to have very severe depression per se. The ECT, that's the electroconvulsive therapy, in which they introduce some controlled amount of electrical current to the person's brain. They say to work for about, is it 50% of patients or so, or something higher. But prior to that, to just give drugs, and they could help to a large extent to help people that are depressed.
Thank you very much for that. My last question, last but not the least, is going to be, how can depressed person handle depression? I don't know if the question can be explained together with prevention, but how can a depressed person, handle depression? I just want you to answer the two maybe together.
Okay, so this one you're putting me in a position to use one stone to be killing two birds.
Okay, just take your time. Take your time.
Okay, no problem. So I would first say that if we don't understand depression, especially those 9, let me list them for us so that people that are watching the video will be able to understand, because it's so easy for you to mix sadness with depression.
Wow,
But
so it's a different thing.
It's a different thing. Yes, depression is a feeling of sadness, but there's something about it that makes it stand out from sadness per se. And one of the things is the duration. We can be happy now, we can be sad. You understand? Within the day, you can be sad and then over. But one of the major things about depression, or let me see if I can list it. Sorry, I don't have it. The first thing is the feeling of, okay, I think I wrote it down. Let me not mix it properly. You know, we like using our English very well.
English.
Yes. So they are to show 5 of the 9 symptoms most of the day, nearly every day for at least 2 weeks. And one of the symptoms must be depressed mood or loss of interest or pleasure. Yes, depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure. So the first symptom they have to show is depressed mood. They are depressed, like that's their mood for most of the day, nearly every day for at least 2 weeks.
Wow.
Then the second one is there's markedly diminished interest or pleasure in all or almost all activities. So whatever activity you try to bring to them, they are not interested in it. Whether it was an activity that they enjoyed before, an activity that they didn't enjoy before, they are not interested in all of it or almost all of it. In all of these things, just add almost throughout the day, nearly every day for at least 2 weeks. So this makes it stand out from sadness, that many times people that are sad, when you just introduce activities to them, they can just, okay, let me watch film, let me go out, let me go for a karaoke, let me hang out with friends. These people that are depressed are not interested in that. They are markedly disinterested in these things. Then there could either be significant weight loss or weight gain. People will see you and be like, you've lost weight, you've gained weight. That one is there. Another thing is inability to sleep or oversleeping. So note that for all this is that I'm talking about is for almost all the day, almost throughout the day, almost every day for at least 2 weeks. Then the people could have psychomotor agitation, like there are some things they can be clenching their fists or wringing their hands to show tension, anxiety, and the rest. Like I see people having that. Ordinarily, they don't usually do that, but they might just be having some kind of, how will I call it? Some kind of activities with their limbs that will show that. Another thing is they can have fatigue, they can experience fatigue or loss of energy for most of the day, almost every day for at least 2 weeks. So it's not something that you're like, today I'm tired, and then tomorrow I am having energy. That's what they happen. 2 weeks, they are either fatigued or not having energy. Do this, they don't have the energy. Another one is feeling of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt for most of the day, almost every day for at least 2 weeks. That's another thing. Then another one is diminished ability to think or concentrate, or they are indecisive. So whatever it is, they are not listening to you, they are not concentrating, they cannot even think at all. Another thought is recurrent thoughts of death or suicidality, with or without a plan. So they might think of committing suicide, but the thoughts might just come to them. Some will go as far as planning how they're going to commit suicide, and some even attempt suicides too. Some are successful, some are not successful. So I have listed about, I think, 8 or 9 of these things. If somebody shows 5 of these things most of the day, nearly every day for 2 weeks, the person is likely to be having clinical depression. And in this kind of cases, you try to seek help. If I don't even try to seek help, go and seek help. Go to a hospital. Because this thing, if it persists, it will eventually lead to the loss of somebody's life. And the sad thing is, most people will be told to just come out of it. Now, are you the first person to fail exams? Are you the first person to lose a family member? Are you the first person to lose money? You understand? They don't know that this person is depressed. Whereas you might have just been sad, but this person is depressed. And because of that, you wouldn't sympathize with the person. Another thing that even drops them down is the stigma. They say you are a weak person at this thing, and it could further make them calm down with this thing. So if you If somebody is experiencing this, if you notice this thing happening to you, or notice someone that these things are happening to, try and reach out to the person and make the person to seek professional help. That's the best. Seek professional help because it's actually a mental disorder. So that's one of the best ways to be able to help yourself prevent that. If you notice this thing happening to you, go and seek help. Even if it's a mild one, you say it's nothing. Go, let the doctor be the one to tell you it's mild, and this is what we're going to do about it. Instead of just sitting there and managing that and just praying about it. I am a Christian, but there are doctors that are Christians, there are doctors that are Muslims. You understand? There are God-fearing health workers in the hospital, and they are there to also help you. So if you go over there, you easily be helped. So in terms of, okay, before I go into the prevention per se, is there anything you want to ask me?
No, I just wanted to, in terms of the prevention, is there any way you can just talk about it in 1 minute because of our time?
Okay. Prevention usually is for people that are born into families with depression. The best thing is try to seek help as quickly as possible. Even when you're sad, let somebody be there. Let a trained professional be there to be able to help you. And even if it's a psychologist or a psychiatrist, let the person be there to help you. And then have support, because family and friends support to a large extent helps curtail depression. So don't isolate yourself. That's it. Don't isolate yourself. Seek help, be in the company of very loving people that are going to help you, and it will to a large extent do that. And then the next thing is that if it's beyond you, seek professional help, and this will prevent you from going into the lethal end game of depression.
Anyway, yes, thank you very much, Doctor.
Thank you very much, sir.
I want to believe that you know, you guys who are watching this, you've been able to learn one thing or the other. To prevent it, seek help.
Seek help.
Keeping silent is not the best solution. You know, seek help. Thank you very much for taking your time.
Sir. Please don't isolate yourself. Don't isolate yourself.
Don't isolate yourself.
Please, community, seek community.
Please. And guys, I'll also be dropping his own YouTube channel link on this video. Please subscribe to his channel. I want to, you know, I'm vouching now on his behalf that you are going to, you know, it drops a lot of, good content out there that is dropping. You are going to like it. And if you have not subscribed to this channel also,
please subscribe.
Please subscribe. So thanks guys for watching. You know, let me know what you guys think about the content in the comment section. Have you experienced depression before? How did you handle it? So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.
Thank you for having me. Bye.